right, so we'll get started now. So today's topic is why junior year is important and three things you need to think about now as a junior before going into senior year. So I'm not your normal facilitator. My name is Sarah Tran. I am the program manager. Faye is having some technical difficulties and won't be able to join us today. But I went to Dickinson College. I majored in English and I graduated in 2020. Something like a fun fact about me is that I have a dog and a cat and I'm actually allergic to them both. But I take my allergy medicine every day, so I'm okay. And then Faye is the coach that y'all have been texting. Normally they would be presenting, but they're having some issues. So I will also be the moderator, so I'll be chatting in links when they come up. The goal today really is to talk about the things that we could do now as a junior. So in this moment to really take advantage of the fact that there are specific opportunities that you can do now as a junior to strengthen your college profile. And it may be too late to do those things next year as a senior. And really to decrease your stress and decision making later on, because there are other things that you'll want to have all of your attention and focus on. So we already did the welcome and icebreaker. We'll next talk about why junior year is important. And then the three things that you can focus on to strengthen your application, which is extracurriculars, recommendation letters, and the SAT, ACT, whether you should take it or not. And lastly, we'll kind of set some goals and then we'll close off. All right, so before we get into things, the raffle for today is to keep your camera on. To qualify, you'll want to keep your camera on. You can turn it off whenever you need to, but definitely feel free to join me with your camera on. And then just as a reminder, there is a grand prize raffle. You get 1 point towards your annual grand prize raffle for every workshop that you attend, simply for attending. And there will be 3 winners for this, and the largest prize is a $100 gift card, and the winners will be announced at the end of the year. All right, so to begin, we'll talk about why junior year is so important. We'll talk about what college admissions teams are looking for from their applicants, and then they tend to look at students' academic profile, extracurriculars, and even volunteer work. So really more than just SAT grades and GPA, we'll look more deeply into those things. All right, so raise your Zoom hand if you find this statement surprising. It's sometimes said that for college applications, junior year is the most important year. So I'll put it in the chat in case you couldn't hear me because I'm having a coughing fit. But raise your Zoom hand if you find the statement surprising. All right, it looks like no one finds the statement surprising, which is great. So you are at a point in your high school career where you are beginning to think about college, but you have time to build out your application profile. And there are some things that you can start doing now. So here are some reasons and ways that you can make the most of your junior year. You still have time to build relationships with your recommenders. It's the best time to take or retake the SAT or ACT. You probably won't have any grades from your senior year by the time you apply to colleges, so you'll definitely want to focus on having strong grades during your junior year. Any academic improvement shows an upward trajectory. So especially if you're taking any challenging classes now or next year, it really shows the rigor. It's the last chance for you to add any extracurriculars. Any started in your senior year may look like you're doing them just to impress colleges. So definitely take on any new extracurriculars if you'd like, or really build into, or not build into, but like take on leadership roles in your current extracurriculars. Can I have a volunteer to read this slide? Awesome, thanks, Carolyn.
Junior year is a great time to reflect on what you want for yourself in a college experience and to decide what aspects of who you are and your story you want to share with admissions teams.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So during this time, having a variety of options and choosing what you want is important. There are so many options for college, and it begins with reflecting on what's right for you. This can be creating a strong, compelling profile for admissions, but you may be wondering what this looks like and what do admissions look for. So we'll talk about this here. In deciding what to share about your story and who you are, it can be helpful to consider what admissions teams tend to value. Beyond academics and test scores, there are many other ways to impress the admissions teams. So some of the most important ones are listed here. Like leadership, having a specific role on a team, starting something or organizing others. Responsibility, doing something to help or support classmates, family, or your community. Wins, team or personal awards and recognition. Your involvement, engaging in your areas of interest. And then really your character, kindness, integrity, determination, grit, and so much more. And there are many ways to demonstrate these in your application, and some of which we will talk about today. And so here are a few helpful reminders. While it's important to keep in mind that what admissions team value, remember that your application should reflect you. Don't just try to impress admissions teams, but really reflecting who you are and your best assets. While your college choices should reflect what you want yourself, remember that you don't need to be everything they are looking for. Just know your own strengths. This year, you have time to work on some things that will make a good impression. There are colleges for everyone, and no matter where you go, your degree will have value. All right, so moving on to 3 things that you can leverage now. Junior year is the year to start gathering the ingredients to make your profile pop. We'll be talking about these 3 key things that you can start doing now. And the reason for this is if you focus your attention on them this year, it will strengthen your profile and ease your stress and when you are applying next year. So you'll have less to focus on. And these 3 things are extracurriculars, recommendation letters, and the SAT, ACT. The test scores are starred because the requirements of this are changing, as some of you may know. So there are some special considerations that we'll talk about. We'll also talk about how you can make the decision of whether to take it or not. And as we already talked about, junior year is really the last opportunity to add your extracurriculars. We'll talk about whether this is a good fit for you and how you might want to do this. So extracurriculars can look very different from person to person. Some might have family responsibilities, which may look like unvalued labor. Which may seem like unvalued labor for college application, but it is in fact very important because it's an important part of your life and is valued by college. Extracurriculars can look different for everyone, and students should consider everything they do outside of school. What counts as an extracurricular? You can feel free to chat it in or come off mute. Awesome. Okay, I'm seeing some answers. Clubs, internships, activities outside of school, sports. Awesome. I feel like y'all just hit all of the extracurriculars. So here's my list, which is not a complete list. It's definitely just showcasing a few. After school, clubs and sports, like Melanie and Carolyn chatted in. Non-school affiliated activities, community service and activism, which can be activities outside of school, work and family responsibilities, personal projects, and self-guided study. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but it is some examples. And bonus points for any of these activities that you're doing if you hold a leadership position, if you have a long-term commitment within this activity, or if you're taking any initiative, like you started a club or created a business. Alrighty, so now we'll talk about what is already true about your extracurriculars. Many of you have already filled out the brag sheet that was sent out to you over text. This is a way for you to see that you have important strengths, that there are things that make you unique, that your extracurriculars are valued, your life experiences are valued, and that you're good enough already. So you are already doing things. This was sent to you over text, but in case you didn't see it, I'm gonna put it in the chat for you. The goal of the brag sheet was to help you start thinking about experiences and strengths that you already have that you can bring to whatever colleges you attend. It also helps you consider your current extracurricular involvements, network of support, and potential recommenders. So like teachers, coaches, supervisors, whatever it is. So completing this brag sheet may help you realize that you've done more than you initially thought, and it may highlight some pieces of you that you hadn't really noticed and want to dive deeper into or expand on. So I highly recommend completing the brag sheet if you haven't already. And so you might be thinking, but how do I know I'm doing enough extracurriculars? There is no perfect formula of extracurriculars, but you may want to consider how you are demonstrating interest, passion, commitment, and impact outside of the classroom. Enough is not an actual number, but a thoughtful reflection on how you are already showing up in the world. It's normal to have anxiety around this, for those who are concerned that their application may not be good enough. Many of your peers will feel the same way. I know I definitely did. And my peers felt, I know I definitely did, and I know my peers felt the same way when I was doing applications. I definitely didn't participate in a lot of the clubs, but I know I was a part of NHS and I was the president of it, so I had strong commitment there. So there is a great question in the chat. You do not have to turn in your brag sheet to us. It's really just there to help you kind of gauge what activities you're doing and really have you digging deeper into your strengths already. I hope that answers your question. All right, so if you already have a bunch of extracurriculars, you should consider if there are any extracurriculars or other things that you want to get more deeply involved in. For example, taking on a leadership role. It's okay if this doesn't feel possible though. You should only take on as much as you can manage while balancing your own well-being and all the other things that might be going on in your life. It's not going to be achievable to go deeper everywhere. So if you're part of 10 clubs, there's no way you could be president for 10 clubs. So definitely consider where it's most important for you to take on any leadership role. Consider areas where you would enjoy investing more and demonstrating your passions. For example, if you're in band and the track, but you prefer track, you should go for it. Some things to consider when going deeper into a position, a extracurricular is taking on a leadership role, taking any initiative. So leadership by action, like other executive roles like treasurer or any of those other things. Completing an independent project, doing something over the summer. Note that if any of this means scaling back in other areas, that's okay. So for example, if you want to take lead in your band, but you need to cut down on track time or practice with track, that's totally okay. You're showing initiative in one area. Awesome. And on the flip side, what if you don't have many extracurriculars? So for those of you who don't have a lot of extracurriculars, you can definitely consider adding 1 or 2 meaningful extracurriculars. You shouldn't feel the need to add these just to seem busier. Instead, choose where you think it could demonstrate another passion that might be reflected currently. This list has some ideas to get you thinking, but you can scroll down to see the different categories of the extracurriculars. I will chat it in now. But really make sure that you're considering extracurriculars that reflect on what really shows who you are. And whether it shows your passions, personality, or academic interests. Colleges want to get a sense of what makes you unique. And if you're wondering if you're unique, we all are, so just be true to yourself. And then this list that I just put in the chat can help you brainstorm if you're not sure what clubs to join. All right, we'll take a minute to do an activity. So option 1, identify an extracurricular where you can go deeper And option 2 is to brainstorm extracurriculars that you might want to add. Consider things that represent who you are and what you want to share about yourselves and your interests. So take about 4 minutes to reflect, either going deeper or adding extracurriculars. This is a personal exercise, so you won't need to share what you write. So we will be back at 6:25. All right, awesome. I hope y'all had some time to think about the extracurriculars that you're already involved in, and which ones you want to go deeper in, or which ones you might want to add. Definitely feel free to reach out to Faye, your coach, if you have any questions or if you need any help considering which ones to go deeper in or which ones to add. So before we start the next section, we're going to take a 5-minute break. But when we come back, we'll be talking about the second important thing to focus on this year, which are recommendation letters. Feel free to take 5 minutes, go get water, stand up and stretch, whatever you need to. I will be taking a sip of water for sure. I will see y'all back at 6:30. All right, hopefully y'all were able to get some water or do whatever you need to within that break. We're gonna get started now talking about recommendation letters. So most colleges and universities ask students to have adults in their lives submit recommendation letters, as well as ask their college counselor to submit one. We will be talking about what this process is and entails, and how you can get really strong recommendation letters. So make sure the strong recommendation letters cover 3 categories. Strong recommendation letters speak to your academic and personal strengths, show who you are as a person, and share real-life examples of your character. So, question for y'all, who do you think can write you a recommendation letter? If you were to ask someone now, who would you ask? You can feel free to come off mute or chat it in. Your teachers, definitely, especially subject teachers. Like if you're interested in a STEM major, definitely asking your science teachers. Oh, employers, yeah, that's a great one. Employers. Math and psychology teachers, definitely. Counselors, for sure. Mentors outside of school, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So some that I might add to this list. Actually, no, I think you all covered it. But I will elaborate. So like teachers, Caroline mentioned teachers. This is really important because teachers might be your only recommenders, and they're connected to what you want to study in college. So like if you're interested in studying English, your English teacher would be perfect because they know your academic life in English, and so they're able to speak on that more. Guidance counselor, college counselors, they might have to write a recommendation letter already, and it may be required by many schools. A coach, especially if you play sports or anything, or if you have a coach elsewhere. I wouldn't recommend your Let's Get Ready coach because we don't know you as personally as the people around you. But if you had a really good relationship with your coach and you feel like they do know you really well, feel free to ask them. Employer, definitely, it's a little less common, but it can be strong in some cases, especially if you work somewhere for like years. And then just to note that you cannot write your own recommendation letters or write recommendation letters for your peers. It's really for those who can write about your academic experiences and your personal strengths in a professional setting. So definitely don't ask your friend to write you one. So now we'll be moving on to an activity where you can reflect on what a strong letter of recommendation could look like, and what good recommenders might look like. So here is the Jamboard link. So the question is, what connections both in and outside of the classroom might make a teacher excited to write a recommendation letter for students? And if you don't know how to use Jamboard, there's a little sticky note spot down here that you can click on. And then you can kind of write your answer here and then hit save and it'll just pop up. In high school, I had a English teacher and I really loved her class. I had a group of friends who were also in there and we excelled in her class and she gave us extra work. I wouldn't say extra work, but it was like a mini project for us to do. And she wrote us a amazing recommendation letter, which was really cool. And so we were able to foster that connection with her by like really enjoying her class and speaking to her outside of the class too. Awesome. So someone said if you know them well, either I'm assuming you know the teacher well or the teacher know you well, either or works. Um, Club activities with them, definitely. So some teachers might be the, what is that called? I can't think of a better word, but like a sponsor for a club. Definitely if you're a part of their club, that could be helpful. If you do well in their class, definitely. A teacher would be excited when you all participate during the class and show leadership in it, definitely raising your hand, answering questions, asking questions. A good passionate student in their class, definitely. So along similar lines as that. All right, so I would add engaging the teacher outside of class time. So like during lunch, going to visit them, talking with them, um, asking good questions in class, um, thanking teachers for any feedback or work, and showing improvement in their work. And then lastly, sharing more about other things that you're involved with or work that you're doing so that teachers can get to know you better. So during times outside of class, you can share about your professional or academic interests and they get to know you better and they're able to speak more on your passions. But a common theme that I see that y'all have put down is really just doing well in your class, showing that you're passionate, and taking leadership or initiative in classes. Awesome. So really to summarize, you'll want to figure out some teachers and potentially coaches or other adults who could write recommendation letters for you and cultivate these relationships by making a good impression and doing the things that will make them excited to do this for you. If you like never talk in the class, you sit in the back of the class, that might not be a good teacher to ask. But if you have a really good relationship with one, highly recommend asking those. Um, you'll also want to work on building a relationship with your school counselor. We'll talk more about this in a couple of minutes, though. All right, so this is a what's what of recommendation letters. So what to look for in a recommender. Teachers of different subjects, so STEM, humanities, sports, whatever is relevant to your major or your field of interest. A teacher you had recently, so from 10th grade and up, 11th is the best because they have been with you most recently and they're able to talk with you, talk about your current abilities and strengths. And to answer the question in the chat, you all will be getting this live and recording in a text next week. So definitely look out for those. And another thing to look for in a recommender is if you have had a relationship with them from one grade to the next. So if you had your English teacher, the same in 10th and 11th, great person to ask because they definitely know you a lot more. And some questions to think about is, does my recommender have anecdotes or stories about me? Have I shared my academic or professional interest with them? And then lastly, teachers know the drill. They've been doing this for a while now, but you can still get ahead of the curve. Ask by the end of your junior year. There will be so many students asking during your senior year, and so they might have too many and might say no. Or they might just take a lot longer to get your recommendation completed. So make sure you ask early if you can. And then just share any information with them, like your brag sheet or your intended major or what your top school is, whatever it is to help them write a more well-rounded recommendation letter. And then you'll be getting a tip sheet with in-depth information about asking for recommendation letters towards the end of the year, but you can feel free to ask your coach Faye for it now if that's something you want to get started on. All right, so now we'll kind of get a little deeper into school counselors. So school counselors are also sometimes called college or guidance counselors, whatever the term may be. Some counselors will be really involved and others will be less so. It really depends on their caseload size. Some schools are really big, so your counselors might have a larger caseload size. They're not as involved, but might be the opposite at other schools. Y'all may know that there might be more students per counselor, and so that you might not have a lot of time with them. So it's good to have a good relationship with your counselor because there are things that they will have to help you with, and you may need to remind them about. And having a positive relationship can really help you work together. Usually, the more initiative and investment that you show, the more they will make themselves available to help you. It may seem odd that they write a recommendation letter since you might not be the closest, you won't have any classes with them. So it may seem a little weird, but the purpose of their recommendation letter is to contextualize your high school and your involvement to a college admissions committee. So this letter will be less about the personal aspects of your relationship and more about the academic profile and the school's academic profile. And so really counselors are there to help you with your college applications. Things that they might do other than recommendation letters is to make college recommendations. They have been in this field, they've seen where students go, so they may be able to make college recommendations. They might support you in creating or editing your college list. They will most definitely be attaching your transcript and other high school documents. At most cases, this is always something that only they can do. And then they might know some admissions officers at some colleges. I've had experiences where my counselor knew a few of the colleges I was applying to, and they were able to put in a good word. So definitely talk with your counselor, see what they can help you with, and see what they know. All right, so to continue, we'll be talking about the last thing that you'll want to consider leveraging now, which is taking the SAT and ACT. And we'll go over some questions that can help you decide whether or not to take it. Then we're moving into some goal setting before making some time for questions. So we're almost there, hang in there. So as some of y'all may know, there are changes to the current FAFSA. The majority of community colleges don't require the SAT or ACT. So if you're only applying to community colleges, make sure you check with that college to see if they require it, but if not, it's usually not necessary. For those who are considering community college, we recommend that you also look at four-year colleges because financial aid may be better and it's better to keep your options open. We can always talk this through, especially you can talk through with your coach if you are interested or have any questions. But so some changes that you will see with SATs are that colleges have now extended testing optional policies through 2025. During COVID, there was a huge test optional option throughout many colleges, but now most colleges have extended it or they have just gone indefinitely test optional. So depending on where you're interested in applying, you may see that a school requires it, a school is test optional, or a school is test blind, meaning that they're not allowed to consider it. And so updates to the current test are that the SAT is now 2 hours and 14 minutes. It's entirely digital and comprised of only two sections, the reading and writing, and then the math. And then the ACT is currently piloting a digital testing, but they're not fully there, but you can probably expect it becoming digital soon. And so you might be asking, should I take the SAT, ACT? Should I retake it if you already did take it? These are 4 questions that can help you make this decision. This is a really big and important question. It can have a real impact on options for colleges and scholarships. So we'll go through these one by one in the next few slides, but I'll read them here. Do the schools I want to apply to require it? How does my application compare to those who are typically accepted at those schools? So like if taking it and getting a high score will really boost your application. Do the scholarships at these schools or other scholarships I want to apply to require the SAT or ACT? And if taking, which test is a better fit for me? So before we delve deeper in, question one, we'll begin by getting a sense of whether the schools you're interested in applying to are test required, test optional, or test blind, meaning that they won't even look at the schools. You can find this out by looking at a handful of schools that are on your radar or any dream schools that you have on your list. So I'll give you about 3 minutes for this activity. You'll want to Google 2025 SAT policies at whatever colleges you're interested in for about 3 to 4 schools. And then you can also check this list for test optional colleges. If you're not sure where you want to apply, you can check out this list. And then once you are done looking at that, the question is, are the schools you looked at test required, test optional, test blind, or free, or a combination of this, and then just chat in what you find. Okay, cool. The schools that you looked up are mostly test optional. Can you tell us a few that you looked up? Okay, cool. Bennington in Vermont. Awesome. Anyone else look up any other schools? I think Columbia is also test optional. I think a few of the Ivy Leagues have gone test optional too. All right, no worries. I hope you take some time after this to look up more schools. That way you're more prepared when you're applying to schools later. Oh. Okay, so some additional test optional schools are Yale, Northeastern, Princeton, and Boston University. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. So we'll move on to question 2, which is how does my application compare to those who are typically accepted at the schools on my list? So you should at least be at the level of the typically accepted students, but should ideally be a stronger candidate. So if they aren't submitting, so if you aren't submitting test scores, GPA is only one piece of an application, but without SAT and ACT scores, admissions teams will be paying extra attention to your grades and the courses that you've taken. At selective colleges, major connected classes and honors or AP classes that demonstrate academic achievement play a huge role for admissions teams. However, you should not risk taking too much and then risk your grades suffering. So definitely know that you don't need to know your major at this point, but you can apply to colleges undecided. So the other important aspect of an application can be GPA. So for this activity, I'll have y'all look up the average GPA of students accepted to 3 or 4 of the colleges that you're interested in. So feel free to take 3 minutes to look up these schools. You can Google average Dickinson College weighted GPA for admissions or whatever college or university you're interested in. So feel free to chat in what you found. Awesome, thanks, Carolyn. Let's see, Bennington is 3.6 average, Wesleyan 3.9 average, and Amherst is 4.1 average. That's a really high one. Definitely, awesome. Anyone else found anything that's interesting? I know some community colleges, I don't think they have a requirement for GPA. Other schools might be as low as like 2.5 or 3.0. 4.1 is definitely probably the highest I've seen. I'd love to hear from at least 1 or 2 more students before we move on. So let me know what you find. Awesome, thank you. So let's see, Princeton is at a 3.95, Boston is at 3.88, Yale is at 4.14, Brown is at 3.94, and then Fordham University is at 3.7. So as y'all can see, some of these colleges have really high GPA for average accepted students. So it says a lot about what students are attending there. And although grades are or GPA is a part of the application. It is an important one, but also there are other aspects of the application that can help boost your application if your GPA isn't up to par. Like if you're taking all AP classes or like all IB classes and your GPA is a 3.5, that's totally okay because you're showing that you're taking rigorous courses and you're doing well in them, compared to students who are taking regular classes and have like a 4.0. So it kind of balances out depending on your situation. But in summary, the GPA is just one piece of the application, although it is an important one. And if you don't submit your SAT or ACT scores, admissions teams will be paying extra attention to your grades and courses taken if to understand if you are college ready. So moving on to question 3. This information is a bit harder to find, but it can be worth it in the long run, especially if if financial aid is a major concern for you, because looking this information up could significantly affect how much you pay for college. So definitely considering if the scholarships at the schools on your list or other scholarships that you're interested in applying to require the SAT or ACT. So some of the larger national scholarships like the Dell Scholarship or like the Coca-Cola Scholarship or any other ones, you can always Google to see if the SAT or ACT is a requirement. I think the two I listed, they are not requirements. Some schools that don't require an SAT for admissions may require it for certain academic or merit-based scholarships. So definitely consider that too. And how you can find out if a school or scholarship requires this, you can Google, could I lose out on my scholarships or financial aid money if I apply test optional? You should be able to find a bunch of different links and resources that point you to schools that do require it. Awesome. And then the last question is, which test is a better fit? So on this chart, we broke up the SAT and ACT and the different sections, length, how it's scored, if there's an essay portion, what the math sections are, and then any accommodations. So take a minute to read over this slide. But the basic breakdown and the key difference between the two tests is the science section in the ACT that the SAT does not have, the length of it, and the scoring. The scoring is very different. But yeah, those are the overall differences. So take a minute to read it. If you are heavily considering either or, definitely research more. This is just a basic breakdown of the key differences. You should look at which one is a better fit for you. You can always take a practice test of either or to see which one you would do better at if that's your worry. And then also kind of asking yourself which schools require which one. Awesome. Okay, so moving on, how can you effectively prepare for the SATs? Let's Get Ready has a SAT prep. Some of you might actually already be in this program. We'll also be offering it again starting in June. And the benefits of this is that you have free classes, there's accountability, there's an instructor coaching and supporting you with specific challenges and SAT questions. Some self-study that you can do is College Board's practice tests, Khan Academy, and Ivy Global. A really cool thing about Khan Academy is that they're linked with College Board. So if you took the PSAT or the SAT, they'll kind of use your score to give you a more tailored specific practice, which is really cool. And then if you are planning to take it, I highly recommend planning to take it more than once. Your first time could just be getting a feel for what the test is like. And then your second time, you can put more focus into areas that you struggled with last time. And then just a note, attending the Let's Get Ready test prep program is great because it will provide you with classes and accountability and an instructor that you can ask questions to. Texts have been going out about this, but definitely reach out to Faye if you need more information or if you have any questions. For self-study, definitely know that you should have a high degree of self-discipline if this is the route that you choose to go. This can be harder to do, but it is definitely possible. The slide deck will be sent out so you can click on these hyperlinked links to kind of check out these free resources. And then lastly, Let's Get Ready can help you get access to fee waivers for the SAT. But make sure you ask your guidance counselor first at school, since they should already have one for you. But if they don't, you can feel free to ask Faye and we'll be able to get you one. And then just a note on fee waivers, the College Board, which is the organization that created the SAT, only allows students one fee waiver that is good for 2 uses. More than one waiver won't change that, so you really only need one. I hope that is clear. If not, let me know. So some key takeaways. You will want to spend more time with all 4 of these questions to finally arrive at your final decision. Even when it's not required, it's an important part of how you can stand out to schools. So definitely take into consideration the questions and how you want to stand out to the colleges on your list. Also consider, is test taking a strength of yours? If so, it can be an easy way to strengthen your profile. And if not, it will take time to prepare, but it is something that's doable. And then just know that you don't have to submit your test scores. There are test optional schools, there are test blind schools, so you definitely don't have to submit your scores. And for students who choose not to submit, there's a higher emphasis on other elements of the application, like your GPA, your personal statement, extracurriculars, recommendation letters. And so extra time and attention should be given to those areas if you plan on not taking the SAT. So in conclusion, should you take the SAT? If any of the schools or scholarships that you want to apply to require it, take it. If it would strengthen your application in important ways, it's a good idea to take it. If you're not sure, you should probably take it. So essentially, it doesn't hurt to take it. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So don't miss out on this opportunity. It might be beneficial. And if it doesn't turn out good, you don't have to submit your test scores. All right, awesome. So now we're at the last section. We'll be going over some goal setting. These are some individual goals related to what you want to accomplish this year in whatever areas that feels most important to you. So we set out this overview of strong goals over text recently. And as a reminder, setting strong goals mean that they are attainable. So is it something that you can complete now? How easy or difficult it is to complete this, and then incremental. How can you break it down into steps? Can you make it smaller so that it's more achievable? Meaningful. Why is this goal important to you? Why this goal specifically? And then specific, what does success look like with this goal? And can you check this goal off a list? Or is it something that you need to break down? And let's see, does anyone have any questions about these goals or what this means or the acronym means before we move on into our last activity? Cool. Okay, so for our last activity, I want you all to think about what is something you want to do to strengthen your profile or application this week, this month, and this year. So write down one attainable, incremental, meaningful, and specific goal for each of the time periods above. You definitely don't have to share this out loud, but your coach Faye will be following up with you one-on-one next week over text to hear what you came up with and to help clarify anything that you want to get done. You'll have about 3 minutes to do this, and before I leave you to it, I will give you an example. So an example of a goal is this week, I want to be involved in extracurriculars more. This month, I want to focus on joining an actual club. And this year, I want to take on a leadership role in that club. So that's an example of the aims goal that you can make for yourself. But feel free to take 3 minutes. We will check back at 7:09. All right, I hope y'all were able to come up with some goals. If not, feel free to reach out to your coach, Faye. They'll go over it with you in more depth if you need, but we will be texting y'all about it next week to kind of check in. So in closing, today we talked about some things that you should do in the coming weeks and months to begin getting ready for college applications. Taking these steps will strengthen your profile and likely result in you making a better impression on colleges. And it will also decrease your stress next year when you go to actually fill out the applications, which, trust me, you'll thank yourself later for it. It's definitely a stressful period for a lot of students your senior year. And then I look forward to connecting with you all about these goals. Or sorry, Faye will look forward to connecting with you all about these goals over text and anything else related to this topic that would be helpful to talk about. So feel free to text them anytime you want. And then lastly, if y'all don't mind filling out this feedback form, you can scan the QR code or use the link I just put in the chat. Your feedback's really helpful to us. We update the workshop based on what y'all have said. And so this workshop is updated based on what students have said last year. And so we want to continue making improvements. So we talked about a lot today. If I'm here for any and all questions, so I'll stay on a little bit after if you'll have any questions. Absolutely no question is silly. So if you're thinking it, someone else is probably thinking it too. Thank you all so much for attending. And you can hop off at any point if you don't have any questions.